Do we say I am a Christian? Have we ever thought about saying I'm a disciple? But the disciples who called themselves disciples were first called Christians. Now from this point forward, look through the Testament, you're going to see this word disciple over and over again. What's a disciple? In the English defines disciple as a learner, a pupil, an apprentice, an adherent, or a follower. A disciple is a person that basically does this. I'm trying to make a decision. What decision would you make? Oh, okay. Well, I'll make the decision then. Like that. Exactly. I'm trying to decide how to respond to a situation. How would you respond to that situation? Oh, okay. I'll respond to that situation exactly the same way. I'm trying to decide what to do in my relationships and how to handle my emotions in my relationships. What would you do in your relationships? And how would you handle your emotions? A disciple is someone who asks a question of the person that they're following, and before they even get the answer, their answer is yes, yes, yes. If you were my disciple and you asked me a question, before I gave you the answer, you would say yes to whatever was going to come. That's what a disciple is. And that's a different word than a Christian, isn't it? That's scary. It's scary to say yes to somebody before you've heard their answer. Isn't it? Like if you come up to me after church today and say, Pastor Ed, how can I serve in the church? And by the way, whatever you say, Pastor Ed, I'm going to say yes. You should be afraid. You might be the next elder. I mean, hopefully I know your gifts and put you in the right place. Can you imagine if you can't sing at all like these girls did today, and you come up to me and say, how can I serve? And by the way, whatever you say, my answer is yes. And I go, you're on the worship team next Sunday? By the way, I tease some specific men in our church every couple of weeks saying, looking forward to you singing next week because I know they have terrible voices and would never, ever do it. That's what a disciple is. It's uncomfortable. Now, I'm not telling you to stop. If you hear me telling you to stop using the word Christian, that's not what I'm telling you this morning. That's not what I'm telling you. But I am saying it's kind of hard to dodge and misdefine and redefine the word disciple. Acts 6, verse 7. So the word of God spread. The number of, not Christians, the number of disciples in Jerusalem increased rapidly. And then here's one about the Apostle Paul. This is pretty interesting. When he came to Jerusalem, Paul, now remember, Paul persecuted the church. Paul was a mean guy. He killed Christians. Followers of Jesus. He terrified followers of Jesus. And when Paul came to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples. He wasn't trying to join a band called the Disciples. He was trying to join a movement of people who followed Jesus, who called themselves the disciples. And this just isn't the apostles, like I told you. These are all the followers of Jesus that Paul was trying to join up with. And when Paul, tried to join the disciples, not Christians, didn't use that term, they were all afraid of him, not believing that he was really a disciple. He's a big Christian, not a disciple. That's how they describe themselves. Oh, and this is cool. There's more than just disciples. There's disciplettes. So ladies, you're in. Okay? Acts 9, verse 36. In Joppa, there was a disciple, or disciplet, named Tabitha. So even women could be disciples. That needed to be defined in that time. She was always doing good and helping the poor. So the point so far is that you can hide behind the word Christian in our society back then and even today, but you cannot hide behind the word disciple. They referred to each other as disciples, which brings us to this terrifying question that I need to ask you this morning. this afternoon. I've got a question, and I want you to ask it seriously. I want you to think about this question today. Are we disciples? Or are we just Christians? Are you a disciple of Jesus Christ? Or are you just a Christian? Is your answer yes, Jesus, it doesn't matter what the question is? Or are you a Christian? And it's just disturbing when I ask a question like that, isn't it? Because, well, it may not be disturbing for you, it's disturbing for me. I work on this throughout the week, and I was disturbed a bunch this week. Some of you saw I posted on Facebook, a little sadness crept in. Well, I can't tell you entirely why, because that would break some confidences. But this is one of the reasons, because it forced me to examine the places in my life where I'm not a disciple. I'm human. So are you. Last time we checked. So what I want to do is I kind of close in on our first session of this Essentials today. Hopefully you'll come back next week for number 2. Is I want to take you to a moment in time with Jesus where he speaks directly to his disciples. And if you don't hear anything else I say, these are his marching orders to his disciples. What I'm about to say is what Jesus said was the critical component of being a disciple, a follower of Jesus. Yes, you should help the poor. Yes, you should manage your money. Yes, you should do all kinds of things, including not sin as much as possible. But this is the number one most important part of being a follower of Jesus. And if we did this, what a better place our church, our city, our province, our country, our world would be in. And if you grew up in church, what I'm about to tell you isn't new. But man, if we got this right, if most Christians decided, I'm not going to be a Christian, I'm going to be a disciple. If we had just gotten what I'm about to say right, there probably wouldn't have been a World War I. There most definitely wouldn't have been a World War II. There would have been no need for a civil rights movement. There wouldn't be any need to teach our children the word poverty, because there would be none. If we had just gotten this right, if we had just actually followed not the 10 Commandments or the whole New Testament or everything the Apostle Paul said, but if we'd just gotten this one teaching of Jesus right. See, what happens here is that Jesus is at the end of his life. He's at the end of his ministry anyway. He's about to have the last Passover with his Jewish followers, the apostles, and Judas has already left to betray him, and so Jesus is there and realizes he's running out of time, and Jesus is like, okay, here's the one thing you got to get right. And now this is the passage that Brother Marlon read for us at the beginning of the service. John 13, verse 33 to start. My children, I will only be with you a little longer. In other words, hey guys, we're running out of time, okay? You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you, where I am going, you can't come. Now when he says you can't come, Peter, who's sitting there, he kind of perks up. What do you mean we can't come? Where you go, I gotta go. We're disciples. What do you mean you're going somewhere where you can't go? Is Andrew going? I bet you're taking Andrew. You know, if Andrew goes, I get to go. Because I met you first, too. I want to go. Then Jesus moves on and he says this. John 13:34. A new command I give you. A new, N-E-W, command. The word new can mean, in Greek, unusual, strange, odd, impractical. You never thought of this before. A command that you never thought of before that might be a little weird or strange or impractical to you, I give to you. Now lean in, guys. You're my guys. We had 12, now we're down to 11, and I want to make sure you get this before we're down anymore. John 13:34. Love one another. Love one another. And John, the Apostle John's like, new? Jesus, that's Old Testament. We've even heard you say that many times. Love one another. A new commandment? Love one another? But then Jesus elaborates even further. As I have loved you,